From now on, Kuraki-san's radio recording will begin. No illusions to live by!
It's morning right now. I've been thinking about the cover art lately, and I've heard other new realization word. The concept of purpose doesn't exist in it. That's why I couldn't find one. Not framing doesn't hold either, because it's implied I looked since around the time I first religion. I haven't searched for purpose, not any narrow sense, not in a broader sense of the life purpose either. So did I fail to stop? That's wrong. That phrasing carries a sense of continuation, but it's not continuation. It's sequence, so no meaning required, so no reason required, but it still leaves the premise that stopping with the possibility, which creates a story. Maybe I would have stopped, maybe I would have option appear a narrative from any phrasing like that end up casting a shadow of story. It's hard to say what I actually am. While I was working through that, the show name became a problem. The word void in America is apparently just means empty. Most people don't associate it with nihilist. It's not the same as nihilism or emptiness. In a simple sense, I was thinking about how to make it land. The core of the show is this: it's not that there's no meaning, it's that meaning and the fact that I'm still running. The two things are simply related. The reason I'm considering void that nihil doesn't fit, and this isn't philosophy going out. My way to avoid words that read directly as nihilism or existential. I had no choice but to brand something like void, something that won't be read as philosophy, but thinking about it again, that word convey nothing at all to someone without a context of meaning or narrative is a premise. It's an environment where meaning and narrative aren't assumed, which means I'm not fighting the idea that there's no meaning. I'm not looking for it either. In that case, it's not wrong, and I'm not running to rescue or performing hope or reading despair as a narrative. I just don't want to fix meaning. So after thinking about the show name for months, my contents with no conclusion, no interpretation, and I care about that. Or rather, it just turn out that way. It never and it doesn't become rabbit's meaning, or it doesn't land, and it can't be classified. It resists genre. That's what I've been thinking. I'm not trying to say I can be novel in a simple sense, having an attribute actually easier. For example, for things having a name, being categorized makes comparison easier, makes individually self-hood more legible. Knowing roughly what you helps, but I don't belong anywhere. In that sense, not fixing meanings was a right idea, but practice is communicate nothing beyond that. Next, something I noticed while doing things. Emotions are better ignored. There when I'm tired and push through anyway. That usually works out fine. Emotions are temporary. When emotions are good, it can feel like things are going well, but that's just the emotional state. It's not connected to the actual situation. Even physical condition, emotions don't reflect that either. Really, when I feel a bit better emotionally, I think maybe I'm not okay. Maybe my body is alright. Then I get sick. Every time I feel slightly better than usual emotionally, I end up with a stomach ache afterward. Emotion make you think things might keep going well, but they're top of lying. Emotions are where humans generate and despair and build their own stories that's frightening emotion right, and the stories that come out of them are just that stories, not reality. And I've been saying I don't build narrative. I actually do a lot of imagining. It supports me in some ways, and it's because suffering others in that sense that I'm modifying traumatic memories, rewriting them. That is building a narrative. I'm already changing the past, but the one thing I'm absolutely hold to is no false hope. Hope is dangerous because for me, imagining ran away easily in the past. I'm imagining in a medical school and it be full of hope that high would write a general despair because it was only ever a story self-help books and help. They all say to visualize a success picture yourself and things go well. For me, that's absolutely the worst things I can do. Maybe I'm refusing to label past struggle as growth, but apart from that, the reason I didn't turn imagination on a narrative, I didn't narrative it, except for the past trauma. Everything else I just observe like Watching a dream means the boundary between a dream and reality, between imagination and reality. It's something humans contract for me, that boundary is already them. People say dreams organize memory, imagination, and narrative building might actually be opposite. Imagination might be the maintenance work that prevents narrative from forming a structured function. What is it? Earlier, it might be another clue, not concluding, not landing, but put differently, that fluid, like a river or like a string that's not put the thing tight. I don't decide to be that way. I just noticed that at some point that's how I'd become. In order to stay intact, that the monk just happened to arrive there. Neutral state. Imagination might be the act of holding or receive and stored an input in a fluid state. And the fact that trauma keeps surfacing, that's a problem. Narratives, causation, meaning, purpose, conclusion, emotional arc, things leaping forward. It's explanation that fills a gap. Imaginations, images, sensation, sound, faces, fragment, like a dream state and scene. No meaning, no causation, pure generation. But for most people, imagination doesn't just stay as images. Meaning gets attached, emotion gets loaded on it and become a story. I would say this connect to developmental difference, where memory exists but emotional doesn't attach to it. There's no distance between the memory and the self. That's why a memory from 10 years ago feels recent, though I still feel anger when I think back on trauma. It's not literally the emotion from that time. It's more like I watch the footage from them and observe my current emotions alongside it. Building the narrative means taking a large number of fragments from imagination, past event, and assignment, meaning compressing data. Imagination just image surfacing. Most people take imagination, assign meaning, load emotion, and story appears. So narratives basically crushing imagination. Less imagination gets through. That's why very interesting to me. I wonder what the inside of other people's heads like. Though I think mine must be pretty different. What I've been talking about, the same as a dream. A dream is just being asleep. Consciousness isn't active. It's just watching a film. Consciousness is the post hoc reason attached to behavior. It's an observer in dream. There's an observer watching imagine even without consciousness. And I just noticed a contradiction. That's the dream, the state where external input is cut off and the brain general internally. But imagination is also internal and generation. The difference is just whether it's controllable. And it's that matter of, well, I don't think my reason weak, but ability to control imagination seems to be missing. When trauma surfaces, its change and spread like a dream. The function that say this is reality drops when that happens. So I can't always tell if something that dreams are real Normally, nobody watched their dream thinking this is a dream. They just experience it as it comes. Emotions move, anxiety rise. In that sense, it's no different from reality. And as I said, brain says the difference is just internal perception vs internal generation. Either way, something is being seen the way of things is just different. Back to imagination specifically. Say image surface of making a mistake at work, building a narrative designing means I might get trouble, but evaluation might drop for me. Imagination run, but I don't care what state character then it's. I'm engaged and in imagining itself there's already living inside it, which is probably why the footage doesn't get compressed, why it keeps going, why the anger and past trauma replayed. So there might be two types: people who don't generate emotion and people who just don't generate meaning. Next, with music, my resolution's a bit higher. I can listen to lyrics I don't understand at all and still enjoy it. The sound around enough, but with stage drawing mirrors, there's no another anchor. Or I'm trying to anchor it, but I keep wondering if I'm having a gestalt corpse moment. The question, am I actually tasting this right now? Surface, which is strange. Next, finishing hard thing. First, getting quotes doesn't change anything. Other hard things just take longer in the end. Right now, I'm just wasting too much time on a cover art. The time I'm putting in a it is giving me some breathing room elsewhere, but fighting it already serves no purpose. It's not like there's not something specific waiting on the other side. Next, yesterday I was imagining being in a situation with the religious community. Everyone used to talk to me there. I didn't want to be close with everyone. I was imagining telling them that, but I couldn't be a loner either. Not because I lacked the nerve, but because I didn't want to play that role as a pose. And I don't want to think it's someone else's fault that I'm like this. I don't want to think because that person I ended up this way. Normally, if someone does something to you, you want to do the same to someone weaker. But the things I did as club captain, I regret the English teacher. I still want to sue them. I think they're the reason I ended up stuck at home, but I also did bad things as captain, so I can't talk. Being told that we all hurt and get hurt, that doesn't save me, and I don't feel guilty about having, because trouble is more that I did the same thing that the English teacher did it to me, but I don't call it even. The elementary school teacher was the same. Also the thought about wanting to take action, so I try not to hold on to them, remembering past trauma and then adding new bad memories on top of it. That's just creating more stories, rewriting the past. Lately, watching videos has been less painful than before. Previously, I'd think, is there any point to watching this? Should I skip ahead? Probably because I stopped fast. Forwarding obviously fast forwarding the more efficient, but vaguely suspect this for a while. The trick to keeping watching was not create the option of watching or not watching, no exception. Most people would need to work this out just to keep watching something, but without it, I genuinely can't continue. Meaning it's hard to feel, so if I don't put an effort, nothing continues. Lately, I've no appetite. That really happened before. I used to be too focused during meal to even register that I might not be hungry, so it never come up. I don't even notice. Maybe there are times when I didn't have much appetite, but I didn't register it. Whether you consciously recognize I have no appetite shift for me. When I'm focused during meals, the question of appetite never surfaces. I like the things people say, but throwing themselves in work to forget an act. That was my default state, and suckering back now, not making exception, always staying focused. That's what worked. Next, criticizing something just because I dislike it. I think what's off, whether I like something with nothing to do with whether it's good or bad. Though someone pretty standard, and there'd probably be a lot of overlap between personal state and general opinion, but letting dislike become rejection that's going to emotional, so I'm careful. But when I talk about here, I'm just being emotional, but if I'm too careful about that, I can't say anything. For everything reduced to I'm just praised, biased. I can't speak at all. It's hard. Though you can say it clearly when someone's just venting. People who only wanna reject something, it should. So maybe it doesn't even matter that I'm careful, but I do have that already myself criticizing because I dislike something and I don't like that already. That's what I'm been calling a strange kind of pride lately. Maybe I'm too objective, but about myself. There are parts I think aren't good. Not that I lack self-confidence, but emotional runaway. How does someone not notice when they're doing it? Thinking about just go off the rails. Next, imagination. A girl I always talk about from the hospital high school days was admitted for some reason impossible scenario about it, imagined various things. So I'm living normally. I'm the one admitted that virgin doesn't exist, but admitted somehow feeling an years of gap regret, a strange imagination, but strongly in my life so far. There's never been a moment where something just ended up with nothing left unresolved, though I don't narrative its companion and don't decide that must have mean this. Don't tidy it up in a story. I hate meaning. I used to think, why did this happen? Once or twice in my life, I felt like something came full circle during COVID. Being stuck at home, I thought this was actually the right way to be, but then it just disappeared at that first, and then nothing it's really been fine to just treat it like other countries did, but nobody seemed to frame it as a historic human failure, a massive gamble that went wrong. They just moved on. I don't understand how. What's different when before COVID and after nobody vaccinated, there's no treatment, and yet things run normally, who it's fine to go back to normal. The normal should have been fine all wrong, or if it was a problem, then it's a problem now. But people explain it away. Things you see online, nothing scientifically solid claims, but the virus awakening or humans developmental immunity. No, will it real? Best, I'm not convinced. Next, if I increased enjoyable time, I can get necessary things done. When the enjoyable time decreased, doesn't that become painful? Thinking like this is why nothing sticks. But occasionally there are things I can't help doing. And the things I research are so driven by pure curiosity. And that's the question. Is there any point to this? Never even surface if even a small part of me question whether something's worth doing. It won't continue for the other person. That kind of question probably doesn't come up for things they enjoy. But for me, the more I enjoy something, the more I think, what's the point of this? Isn't that too sad? Feeling that enjoying something now means suffering later. If it's this good for now, it can't keep being this good. Like ice cream, the first bite is good, but by the second bite there's almost no taste left. Most people treat the whole thing as delicious that they imagine eating the same ice cream a year from now, 10 years from now. They don't think about how painful it'll be when they get sick and can't eat it anymore. So most people stay intact. They keep running normally, but when disaster or illness or accident hits, that drama starts. My life is over, and people watching are all say how awful, how terrible. A lot of dramatic build-up. It gets treated like an exotic event. And watching people build the story, that's why I keep talking about how pathetic story building is, just because disaster was always part of the promise. It should be factor from the start. We are coin the weighted head as you don't collapse when it comes up. Tells you don't say, how could this happen? You just go, well, that's painful, but that's how it goes. Next, seeking stability, keeping the same routine, continuing, and that was painful in my school days. I'm not sure my way why I got fairly stable, got things stable, and then that way strange fear about rating a good time settle. I should stabilize this enjoyable time. Some of it with religion calling things stagnation, but that was almost none of it. More than that, a strange fear was hit. Some call it a phobia. I remember thinking about them. This is strange. When things are going well, when things seem fine, there's this feeling of it getting scarier, common enough thing. Probably the most things go right, the more afraid you get that it'll fall apart, something like that. But for me, it was particularly strong. I'd make it a problem. But then we're animals, we don't wanna break the working state. Any action that could disturb its first dangerous things to protect start multiplying. I was thinking about what it be like for family right now. If you have several kids, your attention disappears past, which probably helped. But if someone married an incredibly attractive person, a famous actor, I'd wonder if that's then painful, not wanting to root that happiness. Can't get sick, can't have accident, even driving would feel dangerous. In my case, that's started in a feeling of not knowing what tomorrow brings, not in a way that leads to at least today's good. I'd never reached that. And there are times in my life when a single day felt very long, because that when I registered with Swiss assisted dying organization, I months felt wrong. Looking back later, that year was completely different. Few flew by at that time. Every day I felt like something could go wrong. When it's not like that, year passed in an instant. But my routine there less about predicting something ran, more just something I keep doing gradually. That's because emotion isn't that engine. Motivation, where motivation isn't even a right word, is not that it exists, not that it doesn't. But there's one thing I can name as a driver. It be this is what I've been doing. That's it. But then discipline or stability feels frightening. What does that mean? What's going on there? Now I'm just doing things proudly, not driving by fear. Simply put, before stability was structure that could break. Now that there's nothing but can break, so it's good, natural, nothing to lose. I haven't quite reached that state of mind, but back then, keeping the same routine, feelings, writing, and I think it was because I knew it will break at some point. Now I just take it only day at a time, not knowing there's path forward, and I'm pretty certain there's no path ahead. Knowing that and still being alive, I have to keep going within. That's probably why I can just do what I always do, processing today's operation while holding the premise of whether there's future or not. Normally saying no past would mean disappear, but it's different. Preciously, because there's no past. The strange fear doesn't come up. It's not that I only have 6 months or a year left, but I don't have to think about things being or with the future. That may I can focus on today, and that's why that's kind of strange fear. That surface fear is probably more human thing. In my case, there's no room to even sit with fear that there's no path.